morning, viewers. We're just at about 7:17 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Update morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. I'm Julian Skeet, and we're continuing this morning. In this segment, we are speaking with Stephen Harris, Managing Director of Secure Group. And this morning, we're speaking Spartan Hydrants. Interesting. Indeed, we're looking forward to the discussions. Good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks again for having me again.
Excellent. As we start the conversation, we're going to start in the first instance. You're Managing Director of Secure Group. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about this entity.
Right. So we have been in business since 2006. We primarily focus on environmental related activities. So we do hydrants, as you see. In this particular case, we do waste and recycling bins as well. We do some other related services. We do shredding, recycling materials, and we do environmental consultancy as well.
All right, excellent. Now this morning we're specifically talking about the Spartan world's first and only secure fire hydrant.
Yes.
That's a mouthful.
Mouthful.
Tell us about this. You know, people think fire hydrant and you just think the fire services. And right. We just only go to that when we need it.
Yes.
Tell us about the significance of this, you know, and what would have gone into to its development and so on.
Great, that's a great question. And you know, you made an interesting statement. People only think about it when they have a fire, right? The problem is a lot of times when they have a fire, the hydrants aren't working. And that's a problem the firemen have had, not only in Trinidad, but all around the world. Because hydrants are prone to theft, they're prone to deterioration over time, weathering, lack of maintenance. And those are the common problems that affect hydrants. Not only in Trinidad, but everywhere. And a lot of the times, and in Trinidad in particular, and Tobago, we've had a lot of cases where the firemen have not been able to access water to save lives. So it risks not only their lives, but the lives of the public as well. So these hydrants were actually developed by a retired fireman who saw the problems he'd had throughout his life. He lost a lot of his friends. And he actually nearly died himself, so he had to retire early. And he decided, he was a bit of a thinker and an entrepreneur and an experimenter, and he decided to develop the world's best hydrant to solve all the problems that he had seen throughout his career. And after doing many years of works, many prototypes, he came up with the Spartan hydrant. So we happened to see the hydrant a few years ago, and I said, you know, I knew about the problems Trinidad had with hydrants, and I was like, you know, this is something that could help. So let's try to bring it. As you can see, it's a unusual design. We spoke about it a few weeks ago. And it's a clamshell design, it's called. And what that does is that clamshell protects the entire hydrant. So it's impervious to weathering. It's impervious to, as you can see there, that's actually the hydrant that we're replacing at the moment. The one on the left. And you see the condition of that hydrant. It's actually totally non-functional. So if there was a fire, that would not have helped at all. As you can see, it's totally corroded, and not only is it corroded, it's missing parts. And even when we dug up the hydrant last visit, it was improperly installed to make it worse. So that's the problems that the firemen have a lot of the times, and we're really hoping to be able to solve that with a hydrant that solves all these problems in one unit.
Tell us, what would you say is the unique difference in terms of this hydrant?
Again, it's the design. So that clamshell design ensures that it's impervious to the weather, so you don't have to worry about the effect of salt, sand, sea. In fact, our first hydrant was installed in New York just before Hurricane Sandy, and that entire area was under salt water, that entire beach area. And all the other hydrants, the traditional hydrants, had to be replaced. That hydrant is still working now. It's actually still our demo hydrant in the US, in that area. So it was totally unaffected by being underwater in salt water. So it's no risk of that. It also is totally sealed, so you can't steal the parts, because in Trinidad and Tobago, people steal the copper and the brass fittings. Again, the firemen can't use the hydrants. And in trying to steal it, they actually damage the hydrants a lot of the time. So even if you bring your own fittings, sometimes it can't work. So it solves that problem maintenance-wise. Because it's sealed, our hydrants are basically maintenance-free. In fact, you get a 25-year warranty. Nobody else offers anything close to that. Because we're so sure that the hydrants will never need servicing or repair to any large degree. And even the part that goes into the ground, which you see on the left there, the black part of the hydrant, even that has been redesigned by the inventor. So when hydrants are used, they normally get what's called the water buffer effect, where the water coming through the hydrant shakes the hydrant. Sometimes it destroys the whole pavement on the roadway. These hydrants are designed to minimize that. So not only would it be useful and there when you need it, but even when you use it, it minimizes the damage to the surrounding infrastructure. So you'll more likely have a hydrant that will last you for 10, 20, 30, 50 years, rather than something that you have to replace every 5 years, 10 years, and hope it's working when you need it.
Tell us very quickly as well about the compatibility in relation to the current equipment by the fire service, because obviously they come with their fire trucks, etc., and attempt to put on the hose based on what is the traditional fire hydrant. Tell us how that works in terms of these this newly designed.
So the internal connections, we make those to suit the particular needs. So you didn't see it in the picture because it's sealed.
Yes.
But when you take off those security caps, and the thing is, only the fire services could take off those caps because it comes with a security wrench that we give to them. So they are the only ones who will be able to now access that hydrant. So people can't steal water, they can't destroy it, as I said, steal parts. So the fittings on the inside are standard fittings. We actually have to get approved to be used in Trinidad, so they give you these standards you have to meet. So we've done all that. And so there's no accessibility or usability issues with the hydrant. In fact, the hydrant is to solve those issues.
All right. And I see here as well what's definitely being highlighted as new certification specs.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. I'm seeing some of the additions or the benefits compared to your conventional hydrant. Tell us a little bit about those.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up, actually. So they created a new specification for hydrants globally, just because of these hydrants. These hydrants meet a new spec that no other hydrant in the world meets, and it's for chemical resistance, saltwater resistance, all the things I mentioned before, theft, maintenance, all those issues. They've actually created an entire new specification, and this is the only hydrant in the world that meets those specifications. Because again of the design, nobody else can offer that kind of durability and resistance to weathering and chemicals. So even in chemical plants and areas where you have a lot of industrial plants, these will be the best hydrants because they'll stand up to the atmosphere. So there's a whole a gamut of benefits that these offer that a traditional hydrant just would not offer because of the old design.
All right. Tell us a little bit now in terms of your target.
Yes.
A hydrant is not something I go in the grocery looking for.
Unfortunately.
on a daily basis.
Yes.
Tell us about your target in this instance, and if you can give a bracket or a range in terms of potential costings attached.
Right. So, I mean, the target right now is right now we're trying to get the message out there, and we thank you for having us. As I mentioned last time I was on the show, Trinidad is actually the first country in the world, Trinidad and Tobago, more specifically Tobago, the first country in the world installing this unit out in North America. So they're in the United States, they're in Canada, and we are third, which is, I think, a big deal for us, something we should be proud of. The target is really to get the message out there, both to the public sector and private sector, because a lot of people have to install hydrants when they build their developments, their malls and stuff. And sadly, I'll be blunt, people tend to buy the cheapest hydrants. So you spend $100 million on building a mall, and you try to save $5,000 and buy a cheap hydrant, and you have $100 million at risk. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. But sadly, people do buy a lot of cheap hydrants. A lot of them are not functional, just like the ones we showed you in that picture. And really, the idea is to get the message that people need to look at the return of the investment over time.
Yes.
It is a little more expensive than a normal hydrant. The cost depends really on how many you need and the configuration. So I can't give you an exact cost.
Right.
But it more than pays back for itself over time because of the additional usage you get, the warranty you get, and just the inherent security of knowing that your hydrant is much more likely to be functional when you need it than putting something cheap and it's not working when you need it.
As we close in this final 30 seconds, why is this a must-have? Speaking to the private and public sector at this point, and contact information, telephone, email, online, social media.
If I had to say it simply, I don't think you can put a value on life. And this hydrant could help save not only your life, but the firemen's lives, the lives of your family and your customers and your clientele. And for something that's minutely more expensive, I think that's a good return on investment, especially when you look at your cost over 25 years minimum warranty.
All right, contact information for persons trying to connect to get more information.
Sure. So Spartan's website is spartanhydrants.com. They just did a new site actually. Our website is SecureGroupTT.com. And telephone numbers, you can get me at 684-SAVE. That's 684-7283 or 340-3456.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Stephen Harris, Managing Director of Secure Group.